Welcome to the Business Reporter. I'm Louise People, and today I'm joined by Brian Murphy, Vice President Product of Integral Ad Science. Today we'll be discussing online fraud. Brian, thank you for joining us. Tell me, what is online advertising fraud?
Well, it's fraud that's very similar to any other industry. You essentially have companies that want to do business with each other, and criminals have found a way to take advantage. And so they're siphoning money out of the system. And in this case, it's advertisers who are spending money on websites. And that becomes a really big problem when half of spend in the UK is going to be online. And that amounts to £8 billion estimated this year. So it's a big issue that needs to be addressed.
So how is it possible to commit online advertising fraud?
The main way that we see it done is through what we call illegal bots, which are essentially computers that are infected with a piece of code. So think of a computer, there's some code on there, and it allows somebody else to operate that computer remotely. And the way this works is if you're an advertiser, you go out and spend millions of pounds on advertising, and say you're an automotive manufacturer and you want to advertise a car brand, you put that out on websites and you think that there are people looking at those websites and seeing those ads, when in actuality you're being lied to, and some of those ads are being seen only by a machine.
So how does the bot infect the computer?
Yeah, so the danger with bots is that they're very easy to get, and or the infection is very easy to get, and then they're very hard to detect as an individual. And so any computer that's connected to the internet can essentially be infected, and the way that works is you can click on a link online or open an email attachment, and any of those things potentially can launch this code that will then stay on your computer afterwards. And the worst part is as a user, you don't really know that it's there. And so it can be happening in the background. And you can still go about your usual activity and not realize.
So in addition to bots, are there any other ways that you can commit online fraud?
Yes, so criminals are very creative, and the advertising sort of world online is very complex, and so it gives them a lot of different opportunities. And so we see bots a lot, but we also see all sorts of other creative things. One good example is you may look at a website and you see one ad, and it's just, it's a box with an ad, and then underneath that ad you'll have many different ads that a human can't see but that are still being registered as sent to the website. And so the advertiser has to pay for those, and they don't realize that nobody can see them.
Sounds quite sophisticated, which therefore means it's a lot of work for the criminals. Is it really worth their while?
It's a very lucrative industry for the criminals. Really? Yes. We see 13% in the UK of all online advertising is associated in some way.
Doesn't sound that much, 13%.
Yes, well, 13% of an £8 billion industry is pretty big, and so that ends up being about £1 billion that we estimate are potentially direct profits to people engaged in fraud. The big issue there is actually not, it's big for the advertising industry, but even beyond that, these are criminal organizations, and so you're essentially feeding money to them for other illegal activities as well.
So Brian, how can you detect online advertising fraud?
Well, so the first component there is that you have to have an element of big data and scale. And so at Integral, we see about 4 billion impressions coming through every day, and we use that as a sample that our data scientists can then work off of to look for anomalies and abnormalities and suspicious activity that starts to help them hone in on fraudulent behavior. And then you complement that with individual machine analysis. So any given ad, as it goes to a computer and a website, there are certain signals that it gives off, and we can use those as well to do analysis of fraud. And so when you put it together, you get a very complete picture of what's going on.
So once you detect fraud, what can you actually do to prevent it?
Detection is good. Yes. But it really becomes a game of cutting the money off from the criminals. And so you have to do that with something more proactive. And in our case, we focus on technologies that block ads from ever getting to the fraudulent computers or websites. And so when you do that, you cut the money off essentially from criminals and prevent them from getting paid.
It does seem like the criminals are ahead of the game. They're always changing their tactics. How do you deal with this?
Well, it starts with having enough resources, and then it's this circular game where we have to find what they're doing, detect it, build technology to prevent it, and then usually about when we've done that, the criminals have found some new loophole, and we start that process again. And the trick for us is making sure we do that process faster than the criminals can do it themselves.
So what's the next step in online advertising fraud, and can we actually eradicate it?
I don't know if we can eradicate it, but there's reason to be optimistic. We can certainly develop better and better technology, and we as companies will get faster and faster at detection and deployment of solutions. And so I think we will definitely shrink the impact of fraud in online advertising over the next couple of years, for sure.
Sounds very interesting and challenging, to use your words. Brian Murphy, thank you for your time.
Thank you.